Hello, I'm Laura Webb, and I'm looking forward to starting an exciting and productive year at ANAMED. I recently received my PhD in art history from Stanford University, and during my time in Istanbul, I will be working on my first book manuscript, which uncovers the aesthetic potency of eunuchs in the creation of imperial mystique in the Middle Byzantine court. Currently titled Cosmos Embodied, my project engages a rich mix of primary sources, such as saints' lives and the 10th century Book of Ceremonies. I also engage more present-day theories of framing, performance, and gender. For this brief introduction, I'm going to give you a bit of background information and then gesture to a few of the directions my project pursues, including the mismatch between image and ceremony, the concept of cosmos, and finally, eunuch patrons. Eunuchs were a crucial component of the political, material, and ceremonial life of the Constantinopolitan court, especially under the Macedonian dynasty, which began in the 9th century. Certain roles in the palace administration were reserved only for castrated men, and these roles were often very close to the imperial family. Some eunuchs like Basil Akapanos and Joseph Brinkas used this proximity to pull on the cords of power, but other eunuchs attended to the more mundane aspects of court life. Eunuchs cared for the silks, precious metalwork, and relics of the imperial household. A eunuch opened the doors of the palace each morning, made sure the lamps were lit, and at the end of the day drove everyone home with the sound of his jangling keys. Eunuchs were apparently so pervasive in the palace that, according to one chronicler, when the extraordinarily wealthy Lady Danielis arrived to visit Basil I, she brought a gift of 100 handsome eunuchs, because she knew that, quote, there is always room for these castrates in the imperial palace, and that they dwell there in numbers exceeding the flies in a sheepfold in springtime, end quote. Though this unflattering description evocatively suggests that we might expect to see swarms of eunuchs throughout Byzantine images, they are not commonly depicted in visual media. In fact, they are difficult to identify in surviving images, because unless they are aged and shown with gray hair, beardless figures could be interpreted as youthful instead of castrated. On the surface, this would seem to make eunuchs a peculiar subject for an art historical study. However, as more and more art historians consider the performative aspect of Byzantine aesthetic production, scholars have increasingly recognized two spheres of representation in the Byzantine world: the visual and the performed. Recent reconsiderations of the performative and atmospheric context of gold-covered icons or mosaic churches have uncovered the importance of moments where sparkling sights and sounds caused comprehension to slip into transcendence. Much of this work has been done within the context of the church, but I ask how such phenomena might work within the Byzantine court, which was conceived of as a mirror of the heavenly one. In this realm, the Christo-Mimetic emperor has been the central focus of scholarly study. In many ways, within court ceremonial, he stood at the threshold between church and palace, able to cross boundaries that other lay people could not. While the emperor is constructed through image and ceremony as a very special liminal figure, a close investigation of ceremonial instructions reveals he was often not alone. Rather, he was regularly accompanied by at least one eunuch courtier. Attending to where eunuchs were positioned and how they might have been seen, my project investigates both the synergy between image and ceremony and the sensitive moments where the two do not quite align. In other words, where is the emperor seen and eunuchs are not, or where is the emperor not seen and eunuchs are? I argue that eunuchs were at their most powerful within this gap. Embracing what is ambiguous and unseen about eunuch courtiers, I show how they visually and conceptually framed the emperor, creating and maintaining imperial prestige. One of the major sources for my project, the 10th century Book of Ceremonies, regularly suggests that eunuchs bedecked in pearls and gold should stand behind the emperor in the golden throne room, the Chrysotriclinos. In this arrangement, the eunuchs would have acted as a sort of living and luminous frame, highlighting and expanding the presence of the ruler. To describe this phenomenon of structure and sparkle, I use the concept cosmos, whose Byzantine meanings encompassed the cosmic, the created world and order, and the cosmetic, sort of material, surface-level additions, like the decorations applied to buildings or revetments added to icons. Previous scholars, especially Ivan Drapic, have described cosmos as akin to Derrida's Per Eragon, a supplement to the work, the Eragon, that delimits it, that belongs neither to the work itself nor to the outside. And work here can really be anything: a painting, a book, a person, a building, or even religion. The Per Eragon has no meaning in and of itself. It relies on the Eragon, but it also cooperates with the work and becomes essential to the work's meaning-making. I propose that court eunuchs were just such a relational entity who bridged the gap between images of Christ and the living emperor. Their visual roles in the court were critical to his display as an icon of Christ, while their sometimes unseen actions maintained the fiction. The proximity that eunuch courtiers had to the emperor made them very wealthy. One way in which my project will expand while at ANAMED is a greater consideration of eunuch patronage of art and architecture. Along with patronage comes further questions about eunuch self-representation. Investigating the dedications of foundations and types of objects patronized by eunuchs may yield greater insights into their place in society and spiritual commitments. For example, previous scholarship has often assumed eunuchs felt affinity with eunuch saints and bearded men with bearded saints. In my dissertation, I examined how one eunuch patron likened himself to Moses, a figure who has not previously been linked as a spiritual model for eunuchs. While much of my project concentrates on what eunuchs accomplished visually as a group, I hope that insights like this open up a view of eunuchs as individuals, providing greater texture to our understanding of Byzantine gender constructions and their limits. I am very much looking forward to exchanging ideas with my new colleagues, and I know that with their insights, I can more effectively show that even though eunuchs often formed the edge, they were essential.